Good afternoon, Doc. Welcome to Honor Cafe Hall of Heroes. How you doing today?
Doing good, thank you.
So Tara told me about you, and we met at what was it? Was the Veterans Day?
On Memorial Day.
Memorial Day. That's right,
Yeah.
Memorial Day. We met up there, and Tara was like, "You got to talk to Doc." Yeah. So you're a Vietnam veteran.
I am.
Yeah. Wow. It's I don't want to say you're getting older, but the Vietnam veterans are getting older. Sometimes it blows me away because, I always still think of Vietnam veterans as relatively young compared to, Korean World War II. But I'm like, wow. And then
Yeah.
the Desert Storm guys are getting old too. So it's something else, Life keeps moving on. So where are you from?
I was born and raised in Galveston.
Born and raised in Galveston.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Back then it was great. Of course, Galveston's changed tremendously since then. It's not the little kind of small town that I grew up in, but it was a great place to grow up.
I didn't realize the history of Galveston that in the 1920s and prior even the 1800s it was a port. Way
Yes.
back in the 1800s.
My understanding is that before, what was the big can't think of the term, but where the immigrants came in New York.
Yeah.
Before that was established, I understand that Galveston was one of the main ports for immigrants.
So I like Ellis Island.
Yeah, like it. That's what I was trying to think
Yeah,
of.
Ellis Island. I'm the same way. I'm always forgetting things.
And then, of course, it's the 1900 storm wiped the island out completely.
Really?
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, it was gone for all practical purposes. And they had to rebuild the entire city. And again, my understanding, if I remember correctly, they had to raise everything up. How they did that, I don't recall, but everything had to be raised up.
Now there's a airfield down in Houston. Was there any military presence or bases or there's Coast Guard, right? There's Coast Guard on Galveston Island, I believe.
Yeah, there was, and there's a Marine Corps Reserve unit there, which that's where I was assigned when I came off active duty.
Really?
Yeah.
So when did you go on active duty?
1968, 2 days after I graduated from high school.
Was that the draft, or did you decide to go?
No, I was a very naive 17-year-old, and somewhere along in high school, I remember, I just got tunnel vision. All I wanted to do was join the military and go to Vietnam. I'd watched one too many John Wayne movies. Is what it boils down to.
I think we all did.
Yeah, and of course, if it were up to me, I would have quit high school and joined. And my parents weren't going to let that happen. So I heard about a Navy Reserve program that you could join in high school. They would send you Navy boot camp between your junior and senior year, and then upon graduation, they activated you. So I thought, well, this is a good idea. I can speed up my military career. And, of course, 17 years old, my parents had to sign for me, and I didn't think they were going to do that. But to my surprise, they were happy to do that. And I know now what their thought process was, well, we can probably get him on a ship where he's at more or less out of harm's way, which had never occurred to me that that might happen. And until after I joined, and then I was kind of despondent. I'm not going to be able to be John Wayne in the Navy. So I had a couple of World War II Marine Corps uncles, Pacific Theater. And they both told me, said, now that you're in the Navy, there's one thing you definitely don't want to do. Don't become a corpsman. I didn't even know what a corpsman was. And he says, if you're a corpsman, they're going to put you in the Marines, and corpsmen don't live very long. So, there's the answer to my problem. So next reserve meeting, I said, how do I become a corpsman? And they said, you don't want to become a corpsman. Told me the same thing my uncles did, because they're going to put you in the Marines. You can go straight to Vietnam, and you're not going to live very long. And I said, no, I want to be a corpsman. They couldn't talk me out of it. So I became a corpsman. And when I graduated from high school, like I said, 2 days after, I was on a plane to Great Lakes Naval Base for hospital corps school.
Well, What was the length of that school back then?
I'm thinking it was about 6 or 8 weeks. I really don't recall.
I'm excited for this interview because I was an Army medic, and I know the training I got like post Vietnam, but I'm interested because things change so much and tourniquets and everything. So did they train you as like a hospital corpsman, or was it like combat?
No, it was more like a hospital corpsman.
Wow.
And you got very little, emergency or first aid type stuff. A lot of, pharmacology and toxicology, and so much of the stuff that I guess a doctor would receive in medical school, but obviously a very condensed, limited version of it.
Yeah, because back then, I mean, a corpsman would do a lot more than most people would, because they work a lot of times independently with a physician.
Yeah.
So when do you pick up the trauma training?
When they transfer you to the Marines, there is they call it Field Medical Service School, and they have one at Camp Pendleton, one at Camp Lejeune. And when you're transferred to the Marines, that's where they send you first. And it's kind of a combination of sort of a condensed Marine Corps boot camp. They got to turn you into some sort of a Marine, and then field emergency medical training. Those two aspects of it. And we had Marine Corps DIs. They're pretty hard on us. Probably not near as hard as they were on the Marines.
Yeah.
But it was grueling, as I recall.
Did you learn how to shoot?
Oh yeah, we had to basically learn everything that the Marines learned. I mean, we had to get hoisted up and down helicopters. Had to climb the not ropes, the nets on the side of a ship. We had to qualify with the M16, and had to learn how to read maps and
Wow.
pretty much all the stuff that I think Marines had to learn.
What did you think when you got to that training?
Oh well, for me that was it's kind of dream come true. That's what I was wanting, and I never got in the Navy. My Navy boot camp was again between my senior year, and it was 2 weeks, and it was nothing like I expected. I mean, it wasn't demanding hardly. Yeah. The only thing I really recalled, it was kind of we had to go through a gas chamber.
Yeah.
And but other than that, it was wasn't what I conceived of as a boot camp at all.
Yeah.
So when I got to field med school, that's what I'd been looking for. So
that's neat. So they basically also stopped the bleeding and put the tourniquets on.
Yeah.
What was it like? What was the feedback that you got when you were there? Because they knew you were going to Vietnam.
Oh yeah, yeah. The one thing that surprised me, all of the things that they taught us for field medicine, very, very little did we ever use. Like one of the things, there was these tags that, and I don't recall, except they were pretty long.
Casualty tags.
Tags. You put them on the wounded and say what you did to them or whatever. I never used one of those. I don't even remember if I even had them.
Yeah.
And so much of what you learned was, never used. You learned when you got there.
That is really interesting. So when did you get there?
I think my tour started it was either February or March of 1969.
So that's what that was a tough time. That was
yeah. It was when I got to Vietnam. Of course, all Marine Corps personnel going in and out of Vietnam went to Okinawa first, stayed there for a couple of days, then you flew into Nam. And when I flew in, we went to China Beach to get our orders. Got my orders. It was for 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, which I didn't know anything about them. Basically, they put me on a helicopter and flew me to Anwa Combat Base, which was a combat base for 5th Marines, which was south of Da Nang. And I got there, went to the battalion aid station, and left my gear and went through about a week of kind of orientation. They were trying to get me used to the heat and humidity, which, I was born and raised in Galveston. This ain't nothing, And then they sent me to the field, or what we call the bush. And the way it worked for corpsmen is your first 6 months in country in your tour, you were in the bush. If you survived that, and that's usually a pretty big if, then you came back to the battalion aid station, and you had a choice of staying in the battalion aid station, or you could go to 1st Medical Battalion, and Da Nang, I think, was an option. Like a lot of guys, you get real mixed emotions. When I came out of the field and got back at the battalion aid station, I was kind of torn. I was so glad to get out of the bush alive, but yet I want to be back with my guys. And it was really hard. And I ended up kind of finding a compromise. I went with battalion back to the bush, forward battalion, which was, again, going back to the bush, but in a little bit easier way than, being with a rifle company. And so most of my last 6 months was still in the bush, but with battalion.
As a medic and as a combat medic, they tell you, don't be a hero in the sense that, if you get killed, we don't have a medic. Or if,
right.
You get shot trying to get somebody else, then there's 2 casualties. So you got to kind of pick and choose, how to retrieve casualties and how to care for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a lot, I think, found on the leadership, like your first sergeant or gunny or whatever. The kind of like, doc, keep your head down, and stay alive.
Yeah.
So what was that like? What was, when you got to your combat unit, I mean, what was the leadership, the NCO leadership like with you? Did they talk to you about these kind of things?
Not really. Every company has a senior corpsman, and then theoretically every platoon has a corpsman. Never really saw, all of that. We're always short. But when I first went to the bush, I met with a senior corpsman, and he kind of, gave me a little bit of orientation, what to expect, and took me down to meet my lieutenant and platoon sergeant. And one of the things that when back at the BAS before going to the bush, of course, all the corpsmen there had already done their 6 months in the bush. So they were giving me advice and telling me what to expect and what to do and so forth. And one of the pieces of advice is when you go down to draw your supplies, they're going to give you 45. Forget it. Tell them you want a 16. So I did, but I got this crusty old sergeant down, this supply sergeant, and he says, your TO weapons are 45, that's all you're getting. So he wouldn't give me a 16. So I went to the bush without a 16. And of course, the first thing when I got to my senior corpsman, where's your M16? They wouldn't give me one. Then when I went introduced to my lieutenant, he said, where's your M16? They wouldn't give me one. So, well, you can use mine when you go out on patrol until first time we have a casualty, we'll get you an M16. So that's how I got my first M16. First time we had a casualty.
What was that like? I mean, because you went in thinking John Wayne, and all of a sudden it's like,
yeah, I had all these romantic visions of war, and I will never forget that first firefighter battle. It was a day-long thing. We went into there was an area called the Arizona Territory, which was a big NVA stronghold, and that's where the 5th Marines did their operations. And really bad area. I mean, a very bad area. Nobody wanted to go on an op in Arizona. Well, Bravo Company, I was with Alpha Company. Bravo Company had gone in on an op first, and they got the shit kicked out of them. They brought us up to try and help them. And, of course, I'd been in country for maybe a week and a half, something like that. Been going out on patrols and ambushes, but never any combat. Never saw anything up to that point. So we went into Arizona and we come up. The very first thing I remember that first got my attention was the first time a bullet went zinging past my head, and I heard that. And that didn't really scare me too bad. But then as we kept moving forward, we got to this point where I could look at it in the rice paddies, and there were Marines just laying all over the place. And I didn't know whether they were dead or wounded or what. And I remember I had the platoon sergeant on one side of me and a Marine on the other side, and we go running out of the rice paddies, and they're firing full auto from the hip, and I don't even see what they're firing at, nor did they. They were just firing at a tree line where, the fire was coming from. And we got out in the rice paddies and fell down. The fire was extremely heavy, and so I started crawling around and checked casualties. And I remember that was the first time I saw a dead man. There was a radioman. He was still kind of in this position, with his rifle looking over the paddy dike. And I crawled over to him and grabbed him, and he just fell back. And I remember he had a bullet hole right just above his lip, and dead, of course. And there were just, I forget how many casualties. I crawled around, did what I could for them. And I'll also remember there was a Marine from Bravo Company that was laying out in the rice paddy that was shot. He was still alive, and he was about halfway between where we were, down behind the paddy dike and the tree line where the fire was coming from. And he was still alive because he would move. And the platoon sergeant said, try and get out there and get him, Doc. And, I don't know any better. Yeah, Well, as soon as we kind of raised up I didn't realize it, but my butt was just a little bit above the paddy dike. And all of a sudden, dirt splashed up, and I had a bullet graze just went right across the top of my ass. I mean, didn't hurt me at all. I mean, it was like a nick shaving,
Yeah.
But scared the hell out of me. And now it's kind of humorous. Wasn't at the time, but I fell down. I mean, I felt a little pain and reached back there, but and came up with just a tiny bit of blood, But I felt all this hot liquid, and I thought it was blood. And I really thought I was dying. But after a while, I didn't die. And of course, I remember the platoon sergeant hollered at me, "You hit, Doc?" And I said, "Yeah." And I think I'm dying. And he crawled over to me and kind of pulled my shirt up and didn't tell me anything. He said, "No, you're going to be all right." Crawled back, started shooting again. And eventually, I didn't die. And I didn't understand it, but, hey, I'm still alive. And, kept doing my job, treating casualties. And what I learned later after the firefight was over was that bullet went through my canteen top. And that was all the hot water out of my canteen pouring over me that I thought was blood. I've still got that canteen top.
Do you really?
I do, yes.
I got a picture. I want a picture of it. So send me when you email me pictures.
I do.
Send me a picture
yeah, I wore it around my neck as a good luck piece on a boot string.
You need to bring that into the museum with the story.
Yeah,
that same story here.
I've got it. And yeah, after the firefight was finally over, I was walking around. We were checking enemy dead and so forth, and one of the Marines just pointed. That's when I figured out what happened. He pointed at my waist of my canteen. He said, "Boy, that's a good souvenir, Doc." "What are you talking about?" And then I saw what it was, and I thought, "Yeah, it's a good souvenir." And
how long were you out in that area?
In the Arizona?
Yeah.
Oh, we went in and out on operations. We would go in on an operation and we would be there, as I recall, maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks. Then we'd come back to the fire base for a week or so and then back on another operation.
So you were the FNG,
Yeah.
So you got past that, and what was it like when you started getting new guys in? I mean, for you personally,
Well, you kind of want, or at least I did. I kind of wanted to mother them, and try and give them some advice. And I've been there long enough that as the Marines would say, I was a little bit salty. I kind of knew what I was doing and what was going on, and I was always concerned for them, and didn't want them to make the same mistakes I did. And we had a corpsman that came out that was assigned to me to break in because we lost several of our corpsmen in the company. And I broke this guy in and kind of trained him and everything, for a few days. And didn't get to know him very well, but then sadly he went to another platoon, and then it was after I had finished my 6 months in the bush. He came in when I was pretty close to my 6 months. When I went back to the battalion aid station and then was with Forward Battalion, we got word that he hit a booby trap, or his squad hit a booby trap, and he was killed. So, and one of the things I remember was he was exactly like I was when he first got there. He was just really gung-ho gunsy. He just wanted to get out there and get in the action, and I remember trying to tell him, hey, you're going to get enough of this, you don't rush it, you're going to get it. And so I don't know if that had anything to do with, probably not. When you hit a booby trap, they were probably just on patrol, but it was sad. I kind of felt, was there something else I could have done, something I could have told him, something I could have taught him, but knowing full well there wasn't.
Yeah. I trained with the same equipment you had, the cravats, the crappy bandages, and the stuff they have now is just so amazing. The tourniquets, the kits they have, the ability to do so much in the field. But I really can't imagine in that environment trying to treat casualties with the stuff you had, the cravats, which were great for tourniquets, and the bandages that weren't that great of bandages. And I would just feel really kind of helpless if I was out there with that stuff at times.
Yeah, everything that you learned in field med school, you just didn't use. And I can remember casualties with those battle dressings that we had. And they were different sizes, but excuse me, let me.
Oh, that's all right. They know you're going to be a movie star.
Yeah. I can remember putting, 10, 12 battle dressings on a casualty, had just shrapnel wounds all over him. And when you finish treating him, you're sticky with blood all over you. And you never really, most of the time, you didn't know whether you saved anybody or not.
Because you completely lose contact with them; they're gone. And
you put them on a medevac chopper, and that's the last you hear of them. Usually, sometimes you might get word of what happened to them, but most of the time not.
When you had your M16, did you have a lot of time to return fire?
Yeah, surprisingly, I did. For example, that first firefight when we were running out there. I didn't know what I was doing. Two guys on the side of me were shooting full automatic at the tree line, so I started shooting full automatic at the tree line.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Let me just turn this. Should have turned that off to start with.
It's okay. It happens.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of not telling you. It makes it more real, right?
Yeah. But no, yeah, very frequently, I was shooting, and
Wow.
and
there was a Delta Force guy, Bernie. He tells me a story, and I've never told a story in the interview, and I just want to know if you can relate to this. He said the first time he was in a firefight, and his name was Bernie McCabe, and he was in the Army as a Delta Force guy. But he said when he was a private, the first time he went running in there gun ho, and the first thing he did was trip and fall down. His helmet fell off, and he felt like an idiot. And he went to stand up again to shoot, and some sergeant grabbed him and threw him behind a tree and said, "Just sit here." And he had a cigarette.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Now get up real slow and look and try to pick out a target." And he said there was this awareness where he could all of a sudden calm enough to see where to shoot. And he said the guy saved his life, but then he got that, gave him that mentality of just slow down a minute and then start to pick your targets. But that's hard when
yeah.
you're just getting jumped on by. Did you ever feel like you slowed down enough to where you could actually pick targets in that environment?
No, most of the time it was, like I say, firing into a tree line where the fire was coming from. There were a few times where you actually, where at least I where actually saw the enemy and fired at them. But the way we usually set up, and most of our combat was at nighttime, because we were fighting NVA, not VC. And, they were just a regular trained army and using typical tactics and so forth. So they always hit at night. When the sun went down, we knew we were going to get hit. And when the sun came up, we knew they were going to quit. And they did everything, first it was the mortars and the rockets coming in from a distance. And then when that slowed down, get your head out of the hole because they're going to be on top of you. And then you're up shooting. And,
how close did they get?
Oh, so we on several occasions we got overrun.
Wow.
And
I can't imagine that. That's just frightening, just to getting overrun.
Yeah, because it's very frightening because they're inside your lines, and it's hard to shoot at them because you don't know if you're going to hit any of your people.
That probably happened more often than not, I would think.
Yeah. It was not real uncommon.
And you didn't have night vision goggles.
No. I remember we did have starlight scopes, but that wasn't anything that we carried in the field. They had or at least in my recollection, the only time that I ever saw or used a starlight scope was back at a fire base. And when we were back there between operations, the corpsman had to stand radio watch and every watch just like all the rest of the Marines did. And one of those was, I don't remember what they called it, but it was using the starlight scope and, looking around the perimeters. That's the only kind of night vision that I ever encountered.
So you get out of the bush, and where'd you go after that?
Went back to the battalion aid station. And like I say, I was torn between wanting to go back to my company and not wanting to go back to my company. So I ended up volunteering or asking if I could go back with forward battalion. And so I went back to forward battalion in the bush again.
So how long was that?
Pretty much for most of my second 6 months, as I recall. Towards the end, I remember that's when they began starting pulling units out of Vietnam. And first tanks, I don't know whether it's first tank division or what, but Marine Corps first tanks, which was around Da Nang, they pulled them out and they brought us up from An Hoa to take over their hill. And I remember that was the last place I was in Vietnam. I was there, I don't recall whether there's a couple of weeks or something like that before I finally got home or got on what we call the freedom bird to get out of there.
So, Vietnam's hard enough, and it's hard enough to talk about that, but sometimes the harder thing was coming home during this war. How was that for you?
Surprisingly, very good. So much of the terrible treatment that I heard vets get, like, getting spit on and yelled at and so forth, I encountered very little of that. And when I got back home, of course, my friends and family, they welcomed me as a hero. And so it was not bad for me coming home, like it was for a lot of guys, I think.
That's good. I mean, that's really, really good to hear. I hear that more from veterans coming home to Texas than anything, especially in this area, And so what'd you do after that? What'd you do when you get home?
Well, I got married, which didn't last long. Went back to school up at Sam Houston in Huntsville.
And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and that's when I kind of fell in love with this part of the country, and which is why I'm back up here now. And eventually, I was in a position in life where I could buy a little property, and I did, and now I'm living up here full time. So
that's nice.
I'm retired, and
so enjoying the retirement life in a great place. This is a great place to live.
It is. It really is.
I think the people are what makes it so amazing. This great, museum that we have here is really neat. And so, what advice would you give to young people wanting to go in the service now? I mean, we're not at war now, but we have these cycles of times of war.
Well, I guess I would say if you can stay out of combat, stay out of combat. It's war is it's a terrible thing. I mean, there's just the things that I saw, the things that I did, bother me to this day.
How do you deal with that?
You try and not think about it.
Yeah.
That doesn't work all the time. When I first came back, I probably could have been the poster boy for PTSD, but at that time the term hadn't even been coined. And then when it did, they started talking about PTSD after I got back. I was just, I said, that's bullshit. There's no such thing as PTSD. And my thought process was, my job was probably the worst over there, and I saw and did more than probably most people in combat. And there ain't nothing wrong with me. This PTSD is bullshit. Well, there was a lot wrong with me. I just didn't recognize it, And it took many years before I finally came to terms with it. For a long time, PTSD kind of had a hold on me. And now, in recent years, after a lot of counseling and so forth, no, you still have some, these, not flashbacks, but these, I think the counselors call them intrusive thoughts, where, you're just driving down the road and for some reason you just start thinking about something that happened. And you don't want to think about it, but it comes to you. And you still have those, but, I've got a handle on it now. In the early years, I did not have a handle on it, but didn't recognize I didn't have a handle on it.
For a lot of people, it costs them their careers, their relationships, their families, and everything. But it's good to see you here with a smile on your face. It really is.
I was extremely fortunate, and still feel that way. For example, when I leave here today, I'm going up Fort Worth area to a company reunion that wasn't my platoon sergeant because he was actually there just a little bit before I was. But he has every 4th of July, he has a reunion for Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. And I've been to a number of them in the past, but I haven't been in the last few years. So I called him and told him I'm going to do my best to try and make this one. So I'm on my way up there. And when I say I feel fortunate, he's probably the best example of why I feel so fortunate. He lost both legs at the hip, one arm at the shoulder, a couple of fingers off the one hand that he had left. I mean, he's basically a torso, a head, and one arm. The guy's inspirational. He came back. I don't even know how. I remember my senior corpsman, Doc Reitz, was the one that worked on him. And how he kept him alive, I don't know. But he did. And he came back and went to school, got a master's degree, had a successful career in the public sector, married, had children. As I recall, he's got 2 sons that became Marines, and he's still going strong.
Wow.
You know,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And so, again, very, very fortunate.
Well, Doc, thanks for being on Honor Cafe Hall of Heroes. This was an inspirational story, and I'm glad you came on to tell your story.
Well, I appreciate it, but I'm certainly no hero. A lot of other guys were, though.
Yeah, I understand that, but still, I mean, what you did is amazing, and we are grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.